There is a room in your house you have never been inside. You found the edge of it by accident. A window on the outside wall that does not belong to any room you can stand in. A closet too shallow for the space it should fill. A wall that knocks back hollow when every wall around it sounds solid. However you noticed it, you now know there is a sealed space behind your plaster that appears on no floor plan. In the moment that realization lands, you want to do one thing. Get a hammer. Open it tonight. Find out what is in there. Put the hammer down for 1 minute. That sealed space is not a puzzle to be solved as fast as possible. It is a record of how your house used to live. And depending on what was closed up inside it, opening it the wrong way can release things into your home that are far harder to put back than a sheet of drywall. Today I'm going to show you what is really behind these walls, why old houses are full of them, and why slowing down is the smartest thing you can do. Start with how these rooms give themselves away, because most people live beside one for years without ever knowing. The most common sign is simple arithmetic. Measure a room from the inside, then measure the same wall from the outside, and find 2, 3, sometimes 6 feet of depth that exists nowhere you can walk. That missing depth is a room. Other times it is a doorway wallpapered over so smoothly that only a faint rectangle in the surface betrays the frame underneath. A patch of newer plaster in an older house. A length of floor that sounds different under your shoe. A staircase that climbs straight into a ceiling. None of these are flaws. Each one is a seam, a place where the house was changed, and the space on the far side was closed up and forgotten by everyone who came after. And every one of those spaces was sealed for a reason. The reasons are stranger and more ordinary than you would guess.
So why are old houses so full of them?
Because a house is not a finished object. It is a century of people solving their own problems, and every solution left a mark. Before central heating, most homes had a coal room, a small bricked chamber where coal poured in through a chute in the outside wall and was shoveled into the furnace. As households switched to oil and then gas through the 1950s and 60s, the chute was bricked over, and the coal room was sealed where it stood, often still black with dust. Before plumbing reached every floor, houses held their water in cisterns, large tanks tucked into a basement or under a staircase, and when city water arrived, those tanks were boarded up and left full of nothing but echo. Grand old houses had back staircases for servants and for hauling wood, and when families shrank and floor plans opened up, those narrow stairs were the first thing walled off at the top and the bottom. Remove a chimney and forget to fill the shaft, and you leave a vertical room as tall as the house buried inside an interior wall. Root cellars closed when refrigerators arrived. Pantries vanished into kitchen remodels. And in homes built in the 1920s, you will occasionally find a cabinet or a crawl space added during Prohibition to hold what was not supposed to be there. Every one of these had a job. Every one of them lost it. And rather than pay to tear the space out, one owner after another simply shut the door and moved on. So change how you see it. A sealed room is not a haunted thing, and it is not a defect someone tried to sneak past you. It is the nearest thing your house has to a memory. It is physical proof of how people heated their rooms, stored their water, and moved through their days in the decades before you held the keys. Nobody walled it up to deceive you. They walled it up because the room had finished its work, and the cheapest thing to do with a space that no longer earns its keep is to make it disappear. You are not living in a house with a secret. You are living in a house old enough to have a past, and that past is still sitting there, patient, behind a wall it has been hiding inside longer than you have been alive. Which is exactly why I keep telling you to slow down, and it has nothing to do with ghosts.
Be honest about what is back there. It is almost never dramatic. An empty brick box is far more likely than anything you would tell a story about at dinner. The danger is not what the room contains. It is what the room is made of. Insulation from the middle of the last century can contain asbestos, and so can the old vermiculite poured loose into wall cavities, which sheds invisible fibers the instant it is disturbed. Paint and plaster from before the 1978 ban can carry lead, and the fine dust thrown up by breaking a wall open is precisely how lead finds its way into lungs and blood. A space sealed and damp for decades can grow mold you will breathe before you ever see it, and any void that mice have found will be carpeted in droppings, which in parts of the country can carry hantavirus that goes airborne the moment you sweep or smash through it. None of this is a reason to fear your house. It is simply the reason you do not open a 100-year-old sealed room with a claw hammer and bare hands on a Tuesday night. The room has waited this long. It can wait while you do it correctly. And this is the idea I most want you to keep, because it is the most useful thing in this video. A sealed room is not only a curiosity, it is information. It is your house telling you, in the plainest language a building has, that it was altered, that someone changed its structure, and very likely never wrote it down. If one change was buried and forgotten, others were too. The wiring threaded past that void may be older than the wiring everywhere else. The plumbing routed around it may match no drawing you own. A wall that was closed up may be carrying weight it was never built to carry. The sealed room is the single modification you can actually see. Its real value is the warning it gives you about every modification you cannot. The quiet, undocumented changes hiding in the bones of nearly every old house. That is something you want to understand before you start a renovation, not halfway through one. So, what do you actually do? First, do not break in. Resist the most popular instinct on the internet, which is to swing a sledgehammer at a mystery wall for the camera. Document it instead. Hold it against your home's original blueprints if you have them, or pull the old permit records from your city, which often keep a paper trail of when rooms were added or removed. If you need to see inside before you decide anything, drill one small hole and feed in a borescope camera, the kind that costs less than a nice dinner and shows you the whole cavity without opening the wall at all. Before you disturb a single surface, test it. Asbestos and lead kits are cheap, and a sample mailed to a lab costs a fraction of the medical and cleanup bills that come from guessing wrong. Confirm whether the wall is load-bearing before you pull one brick, because some of these closures quietly became structural over the decades, whether anyone meant them to or not. And when you finally do open it, ventilate the space. Wear a real respirator instead of a paper mask, and call a professional for anything touching asbestos, old wiring, or structure. Do it in that order, and you turn a reckless gamble into a controlled discovery, and you keep both your house and your lungs intact. The sealed room behind your wall is not a tomb, and it is not a trap. It is a time capsule your house built for itself, one quiet closure at a time, keeping a record of every era it has lived through in the only way a building can. It deserves more than a hammer and a held breath. It deserves a minute of patience, a small camera, a cheap test, and the simple respect of being opened by someone who understands what they are looking at. So the next time you find a window with no room behind it, or a wall that answers back hollow, take that minute. Put the hammer down. The house has kept this space for 100 years. It can keep it a little longer while you learn to open it the right way. Have you ever found a space in your home that was not on any floor plan? A sealed door, a hollow wall, a room that simply should not be there? Tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one, and the stories this community leaves are some of my favorites. And if today changed the way you look at the quiet, closed-off corners of your own house, then something just shifted in how you see the place you live. That shift is what this channel is built on. I will see you in the next one.